Hello, and thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins, where I compare books with their movie adaptations. My name is Laura, and today I'm talking about the movie Nightbitch, directed by Marielle Heller, released in 2024, and it is based on the book by Rachel Yoder, which was published in 2021. And this is about a woman who pauses her career to be a stay-at-home mom, but soon her domesticity takes a surreal turn. And I really enjoyed both book and movie. This was my second time reading the book. I read it for the first time almost 3 years ago now, and I loved it the first time I read it. I actually talked about it in my wrap-up at the time because I filmed monthly book wrap-ups back then. I don't anymore. But anyway, that was my best book of the month, I think, when I read it. And so then reading it this time around, I still really liked it. I think something about where I was in life that first time I read it, it just really impacted me in a deep way. I'm not a mom, but it just impacted me just as a woman, you know? And so, yeah, it's one I would highly recommend. And then the movie I really liked too. And I think if you like one, you should definitely check out the other. And yeah, the surreal turn that this story takes is that she begins to turn into a dog. And in the book, as she is transforming into a dog at night, her daytime look also transforms in a way because she starts dressing differently. And in the book, we specifically read that she goes out and buys a fur coat. So that is why I am reading this because, for one, it's about someone who turns into a dog, right? So the fur just makes sense. But again, she even talks about buying a fur coat in the book. I don't know if I'll wear it for the whole video because it is kind of warm to wear this while indoors, but I like to dress on theme. And so I just thought this was a fun outfit and very fitting. And speaking of my wardrobe, I also want to thank Luisa for providing me with the jewelry for today's video. So this necklace is from them as well as my earrings. I probably should have tied my hair back. But anyway, these earrings are also from Luisa. They are a sustainable jewelry company that just makes incredible pieces. And I have so many earrings of theirs now, and I have at least 2 necklaces. And yeah, I love them and I wear them all the time. Lately, if you see me wearing jewelry in a video, it's probably Luisa. So this is a company I genuinely like, and I am sincere when I say how much I love their items. And, with Christmas right around the corner now is a great time to buy it not only for yourself, but also as a gift for someone else. And the way their website works is that the more you buy, the more you save. So I often buy stuff for myself when I am Christmas shopping for other people. I feel so selfish when I do it, and yet it always happens every year. But if you shop with Luisa, it just makes sense to buy multiple things, and so then you can justify getting something for yourself as well. And then also, they are sustainable, like I said, and that includes their packaging, which is carbon neutral. And I know the packaging, you're gonna throw it away anyhow, but if you give it as a gift, then the packaging starts to matter more, right? And I just love the way these are packaged. Even the necklaces come in these cute little pouches. And again, it's all carbon neutral. And then, yeah, the stuff that really matters, the jewelry, I just absolutely love. They are tarnish free for one, and they're just so high quality while being a reasonable price. And then their customer service is great as well. And then they arrive super fast after you order it. And yeah, I just feel like they elevate every outfit I wear, and I absolutely love them. So I have a link down in my description that you should definitely check out. Yes, it is an affiliate link, so it benefits me if you buy something using that link. And yeah, it would be a great gift. And their jewelry is so diverse too, so you can find something for someone regardless of what their taste is, what their style is. You'll find something that will be perfect for them. But yeah, so thank you to Luisa for providing the jewelry for today's video. And now it is time to get into the details of the plot, which means there will be spoilers going forward. So to begin with the basic gist of the story. So both book and movie are very character driven, specifically our main character, right? The inner journey she is going through, that is the focus of this story. And so it's not this edge of your seat plot that is driving the story. It is what is going on with her internally, right? And so I feel like in many ways this worked better in the book than it did with the movie. But regardless, on the surface, both book and movie, the story is pretty basic on the surface. And once you kind of dig down deep, you see the many layers there are to a seemingly simple story. But to give you the seemingly simple story right off the bat, so none of the main characters have names. They're all just referred to as the mother and the husband and the son or baby. And so the main character is the mother, and she is a stay-at-home stay-at-home mom to a 2-year-old boy, and she's beginning to regret her choice to give up her career in order to stay home with her son. And she also resents her husband for always being away and on work trips and just taking her and what she does for granted. And this anger she feels is manifested as her turning into a dog. And even though we do see her literally becoming a dog, like it's literal in the story, and so it does have like this magical realism aspect to the book, but obviously this is symbolic of other things, right? And this transformation makes her feel empowered because she is embracing the sloppy, violent, angry side of her, and it also inspires her to create an art exhibit because before she had a son, she was an artist. That is the career she gave up. And so she creates an art exhibit that showcases the violence and beauty of motherhood. And the exhibits are different from book to film, which I will get into, but they're both conveying the same message, essentially. But yeah, in both, she starts to get these different features that make it appear she is turning into a dog. And in both book and movie, we get some slight body horror with this. I do kind of wish that the movie had leaned into this even more, like the weirdness and the body horror. But, you know, I can only take so much body horror. So it's not like I want a movie to be over the top in that regard. But I also kind of wish that this movie pushed it a bit more. But yeah, eventually she does become a literal dog. And in the movie, she turns into a domesticated looking dog. And in the book, I imagined her looking more like a dog woman hybrid, so more of a werewolf. And so initially, when we see her become a literal dog, I was a little disappointed again that they didn't get weirder with it. But ultimately, the more I thought about it, this is fine. It didn't ruin the movie for me by any means. But yeah, so she turns into a dog at night and will run through the neighborhood and into the woods with other dogs, and she kills rabbits and other animals during these night excursions. And so this is a great release for her, right? Embracing her inner wild animal, and it's like an outlet for all of the anger that she has pent up inside of her. But then also embracing this side of her at night positively reflects her life in the daytime with her son. And it's cute because she and her son will pretend to be dogs, and the son gets really into it, and it even helps him sleep better at night because in the movie she has him sleep in a dog bed, whereas in the book she had him sleep in a dog kennel. She wouldn't actually shut the gate or the door, but yeah, he slept in a dog kennel in the book. But prior to him pretending to be a dog, he would have such a hard time going to sleep at night, and it was driving her crazy. And yet this dog game ends up helping him sleep better at night. And again, it also just rejuvenates her sense of self, right? And like I said, her wardrobe undergoes a change, and like she reevaluates what she wants from life. Really embracing this side of her rather than resisting it has a positive impact on her life. But in the movie, one night when she turns into a dog, she ends up killing their pet cat. And in the movie, we see the dog grab the cat, but it wasn't graphic, in my opinion. However, in the book, this is a different case entirely because in the book, it happens when she is herself, like it's happening during the daytime, and she gets frustrated because the cat like causes her to slip when she's in the kitchen. And so as she's on the floor, she angrily grabs the cat, and then she has a knife and she stabs the cat and cuts it open. So it was much more graphic in the book. But in the book, from here, we then segue into a story about her childhood involving her mom and her grandma. And her mom, we find out, had the chance to be a professional singer. However, getting pregnant and becoming a mom just derailed those dreams. And we also hear that they lived in a religious group where to prioritize oneself above others was looked down on. And so yeah, she grew up on this farm in this religious community, and her mom was often sad, and she would just like sit outside, just kind of staring off into space, essentially. And one night, the main character, when she is a girl, she dreams that her mom is sitting outside, and then she starts to be attacked by these wild animals, and the mom is petting these animals while they attack her, and the mom is meowing like a cat. And then when the daughter wakes up, she is kind of hazy, and she sort of like connects her mom to the kittens because they have kittens on this farm. But she makes a point to say like, my mom doesn't even like the kittens though. But then from here, the main character, the kittens begin to follow her around, and she's worried that when she goes to school, the kittens will follow her and they'll leave the farm, leave the property, and they will get hurt. And so she turns to her grandma to get help keeping the kittens contained. And so the grandma makes this potion and she puts it along the property line, and it prevents the cats from being able to get out. And then we later read, her mother was good and responsible and holy and always somewhere far away in her own head, or with a headache or napping, or just please leave me alone. Forget your Grammy and her book. Be serious. Do something sensible. And always the girl had thought her mother was pushing her out the door. Away and away. Go fast. She thought that this had been a sort of abandonment, but now she saw it for what it was, her mother's best love. How many generations of women had delayed their greatness only to have time extinguish it completely? How many women had run out of time time while men didn't know what to do with theirs. And what a mean trick to call such things holy or selfless. How evil to praise women for giving up each and every dream. And so yeah, I think the fact that we get this flashback right after she kills her cat, and then this flashback involves a story about cats, is obviously very meaningful. And so I think cats in general in this story represent the quote-unquote selfless mothers who gave up their dreams, right? Like they are the kittens that are contained within this box and are trapped in a sense. And so by her killing their pet cat, let alone the fact that she kills it in such a graphic way, I think is symbolic of her killing that part of her that was again staying contained in this bubble of which she and society had created for herself. And it also makes sense if you think of the kittens in this context, it makes sense that her mom didn't like the kittens because the kittens represent the life her mom was living, right? Which the mom, she was depressed and unfulfilled, to say the least. She loved her daughter, and yet at the same time, like she gave up so much of herself and gave up all of these dreams and desires, right? So I think that's what the cats represent, and I think that's why she kills the cat in the book. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, Rachel Yoder, she liked one of my Instagram stories recently, so if there's some possibility that she ends up seeing this video and watching it, I would love to hear if I'm like remotely right about the cat symbolism. But yeah, whether you're Rachel Yoder or not, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Whereas in the movie, we do get flashbacks to her childhood, but they are interspersed throughout the whole movie. So it's not like the book where killing the cat, there's so much meaning behind it, right? And that is what leads us to the flashback. Instead, killing the cat seems like a smaller deal in the movie to some extent. And then again, this didn't segue into a flashback. The flashback was just all throughout the movie. And by the way, it's starting to get kind of hot, so I'm going to take this jacket off. But then to talk about her husband, so something we learn about her husband in the book is that what made her fall in love with him when they were dating was the fact that he showed her his folder, and this digital folder contains pictures and videos of people just doing weird things. But he doesn't collect these because he judges them or laughs at them. He collects them because he just seems to like seeing people embrace their weirdness, essentially. And throughout the book, she reflects back on this folder he had showed her. And near the end of the book, he comes outside at one point and he sees her being very dog-like. And from here we read, "Then her husband was there, beside her, silent in the twilight. Where she assumed panic would have been, a vast vista of sublime calm extended instead. He knew. He was seeing what she was. Well, this was it then, wasn't it? Might as well get it over with. She had once been a girl, then a woman, a bride, expectant, a mother, and now she would be this, whatever this was. A wild, complicated woman with strange yearnings. Stubborn and angry, soft and sweet though, too. She was creator and then also the dark force that roamed the night. She was part high-minded intention and part instinct, raw flight. Hello, she wanted to say to him. I am your wife. I am a woman. I am this animal. I have become everything. I am new and also ancient. I have been ashamed, but will be no more. Your new project, he said, then laughed. This dog stuff, the night excursions. I get it. And then later in the book, we read, your best work, he said, something in his face softer and broken. An astonishment, maybe. A person he hadn't yet shown her, though they'd been together over a decade. In that face, she could see that he loved her and was in awe of her, of what she had made, that he had never meant for her career to be quashed, that he had always wanted for her happiness and art, and that now he saw all she had become and saw it was hers, saw that she existed as a creative force independent of him or their son, but also in control of him, that he would do for her whatever he could because of his love and devotion, his near childlike adoration of her, which had gotten lost in the hum-ho of every day after day for years and years. And yeah, up until this point, we just read how frustrated she was with her husband and he could be so insensitive and aloof and unhelpful. But then ultimately, I really liked the course of their relationship, right? And I liked the arc we get here. And also, when she shows him a side of her he has never seen before, in turn, he shows her a side of him she had never seen before, right? And so, yeah, I just thought it was really beautiful. Whereas in the movie, the husband, he is very similar to the husband in the book as well. However, there is no folder here. And they do add a few scenes that are unique to the movie too. For example, there's a part where they go to a museum together, and while they are there, she tells him like, you know what? I want to stop being so resentful of being a stay-at-home mom, essentially. I just want to embrace it because our son is growing so fast. And so I want to be in the moment, just appreciating this. I want to let go of my dreams of artwork, just forget about it and just enjoy being right here, right now kind of a thing. And he's all on board. He's like, great, that sounds good to me. However, later she gets upset with him about this. And she tells him, like, when I said I was going to let go of all of my dreams and my art, you shouldn't have been all on board, right? Like, she's like, you should have argued that I shouldn't let go of that side, right? That I have so much to contribute to the world, that I shouldn't just leave it all behind. But then he argues that the reason he said he was all on board was that he thought that's what she wanted to hear. And he thought he was being supportive of her desires. And he also says that he's not a mind reader, right? Like, if she tells him she's okay, he is going to believe that she is okay, right? And so he's like, it's not my fault if I'm believing what you're telling me, kind of a thing. And I will say he does have a good point, right? But I would argue that there were times she was trying to tell him that she wasn't okay, and yet he could be pretty dismissive. And so I can see where he's coming from in some sense, because there were times where she was acting like, yeah, like, I'll be fine. It's cool. I'm great. And yet at the same time, I feel like she did try to tell him, right? But he just wasn't paying enough attention, maybe. But regardless, I found their relationship very relatable in many ways. And this argument, which is unique to the movie, I also really liked. And there's also a part during this argument in the movie when he says something like, what happened to the woman I married? And she says, she died in childbirth, which I thought was a fantastic line. And yeah, I really like how this explores how people change over time, right? Like, when you're in a long-term relationship, the way the person was when you married them over the course of a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, like, they are going to change. And that's just part of a long-term relationship. And so learning how to adapt to the way the other person changes and how you're changing, you know? And so yeah, I just really liked how this was exploring that. But then in the movie from here, she says she wants a separation, which did not happen in the book. However, at her art show, he is there, and we get a scene similar to what I read from the book, where he realizes everything she had given up and realizes how amazing she is. And he tells her, like, you were right. I should have fought for you to hold on to this, because you do have so much to contribute, and that you are so much more complex, and there's so much more of you, you know? And so, yeah, they come to a good place in the end, it seems. And the very last scene is her giving birth to their baby girl. But to talk about her art show, so in the book, this is like a performance art piece, because we have the crowd sitting down in their chairs, the audience, and she, as Nightbitch, comes walking through the crowd onto a stage, and there's like this movement with this pile of bones she does. But the big thing is that on stage she kills multiple rabbits. And so this show garners a lot of attention and is very successful, but there's also a lot of backlash. And people will often leave before it's even finished because they dislike it so much. I feel like my voice is getting kind of hoarse, so I apologize. But anyway, in the book, we then read about the final moment of the show, which says, those few audience members at the theater who managed neither to panic nor to flee, these folks bear witness to the very end of the show. Nightbitch there on stage with a small boy, her son, to whom she delivers a limp body of the bunny for him to sniff and caress. As the curtains creep closed, this is what those few brave folks see: a feral woman and her offspring with the still warm body of a rabbit in his hands. They will report that the duo emanated a beauty that had not been seen before, despite the protestations of some that exposing a child to such a thing was abuse. No, those who'd seen it would argue. Here was a woman who knew that life unfolded through mystery and metaphor, without explanation, who looked upon her perfect son in front of her, a person she had made with her strongest magic, standing right there in the blinding spotlight as if he weren't a miracle, as if he weren't the most impossible thing in the entire world. And there is also a part where she is addressing people who complain about the violence of the show, and we read, and in response to those who called her show needlessly brutal and the worst of performance art and an abomination that conjures the basest element of humanity and puts it on exhibit for all to see, Nightbitch herself explains that her work was meant to underscore the brutality of motherhood, how a child's first act is violence against the woman who created it, yet the mother loves the child with the most powerful love known in the universe. This thing comes from us, she would explain in interviews. It rips its way out of us, literally tears us in two in a wash of great pain and blood and shit and piss. If the child does not enter into the world this way, then it is cut from us with a knife. The child is removed and our organs are taken out as well before being sewn back inside. It is perhaps the most violent experience a human can have aside from death itself. And this performance is meant to underscore the brutality and power and darkness of motherhood. For modern motherhood has been neutered and sanitized. We are at base animals, and to deny us either our animal nature or our dignity as humans is a crime against existence. Womanhood and motherhood are perhaps the most potent forces in human society, which of course men have been hasty to quash, for they are right to fear these forces. Whereas in the movie, it isn't a performance art show, and instead it is more of a standard art show because she has a series of paintings that depict different moms she knows and is friends with. So it's these moms with dead animals or with meat, and then there's also like this mobile type thing of like animal bones and this merry-go-round with taxidermy. So it's more of a art exhibit, but it still conveys that same message, right? But then there is another scene in the movie earlier on that kind of reflects part of the quote I just read, where she is talking with some other mothers, and one of them is expecting her second child. And so as she is talking to them, she's saying like, women are like gods because we create life within inside of us, right? And she's like, you right now, you are making bones as we speak, right? And so the other mothers, rather than being like, okay, you're weird, they actually take it to heart and they think like, wow, like you're right. Like we are powerful, amazing beings. And again, even though I myself am not a mother, I still was really impacted by this story and just the way it made me feel so empowered to be a woman, right? Because we do live in a society that in many cases views men as being better than women oftentimes. And so reading a book like this just really makes me love that I'm a woman and feel proud of it, right? And embrace all sides of femininity, because femininity isn't just the cute, soft, sweet side. It's also this darker side, this weirder side. And so, yeah, I just loved this book. And again, when I read it, especially in February of 2022, at that point in my life, I think it was a message I really needed to hear. And so, yeah, I just really appreciate her honesty with this book. And even though it's a story about motherhood, again, I'm not a mom, and yeah, I really appreciated it and could relate. But then also, I think this is a story that anybody could get something out of, right, and relate to. And I watched Fish Jelly's film review, and they both gave this high praise. And two men with no kids, had things that they really connected to with the story, you know? So I think, again, if you're a mom, I would love to hear your thoughts on this book, because that obviously, I feel like to be a mom, you know, it would feel different. But again, don't dismiss this book or movie simply because it's about motherhood, because it's so much more than that. But also, even if it was just about motherhood, like, God forbid a man read a book that tells him about the female experience, right? Like, we always act like books about a woman's experience, oh, only girls, only women read that. When that's like, what? Like, why? What's wrong with a man getting some insight, right, into what it's like to be a woman? But then also to talk about some of the other moms in this story, which play a huge part. So she meets these other moms at something called book babies, which is when you go to the library and you bring your kid and they play kid music. And so we see her there. And initially she is thinking how like she hates being around other moms. And she hates the fact that society makes them feel like, oh, you should be friends simply because you're moms, as if like that's all that matters, is that they have that in common. But I saw this as her internalized sexism, right? Because she is annoyed and condescending towards these other women who seem to embrace and love motherhood. And there's also a part in the movie when she sees one of these women at the museum and they stop and say hi. And when they go their separate ways, her husband is like, oh, who was that? And she is so dismissive of her, being like, oh, she's just a mom from book babies, right? But over time, she genuinely becomes friends with these women. And she sees them as being so much more than what she had assumed of them. And so, yeah, so I loved seeing how even her, this feminist, had these sexist views of these other mothers. But in both book and movie, the main mom here is named Jen, which in the book, when she goes to this Jen's house, all of the other women there are also named Jen. And so again, I think it's just our main character just sees them all the same, right? Because again, at this point, she still is judging them and she just sees them as all like a cardboard cutout of each other in a sense. So that's kind of how I took the fact that they all have the same name in the book. But anyway, so the main Jen, though, she invites her to her house because she wants to invite our main character to be part of her MLM, this exciting new opportunity. And our main character does become part of this. However, later in the story, Jen confides in her that she is actually thousands of dollars in debt due to this MLM. And she used to be a PR manager. And so from here, our main character is like, you know what? Come work for me because I'm going to start this new performance art exhibit and you can be my PR manager. And as said, this art show becomes very popular and very lucrative. And so this helps Jen with her finances while also helping her be part of something that is actually meaningful and making a difference. And I loved this MLM part of the book because MLMs, they tend to target certain types of people. And there are so many MLM, multi-level marketing, pyramid schemes there are so many of those that target moms in particular. And so I also hate the term side hustle because I feel like this is the context it's usually used, where it's like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm making all of this money with this side hustle and it's so easy. But really, we all know that MLMs are total crap, right? And they are just taking advantage of people. And in this case, they are taking advantage of moms who might feel like they aren't contributing enough to the household income, which is something that is talked about in the book. And so, yeah, these people want to find a way to make some quote unquote easy money. And they are told they will feel empowered by being part of this group, this community, this sisterhood. And they can also like make a difference and provide people with something that really matters and will help them. When really they're being sold a lie, because very rarely is any of this true. And like we see here with Jen, who is in a ton of debt, she is not the one getting rich. It's the people up at the top who are getting rich, you know? And so I love that in the end of the book, they turn this true example of what motherhood is into this artistic business venture of sorts, which actually is truly empowering and actually making a difference and is actually lucrative as well. And it actually helps bond them as part of a sisterhood of sorts. Because yeah, MLMs claimed to do all these things, but really they were just lying and being so manipulative and taking advantage, right? And so, yeah, I just loved this part of the book. The movie does not have the MLM aspect at all, which I was a little disappointed by. But in both book and movie, I need to talk about the book she starts reading, which is called A Field Guide to Magical Women, written by a woman named Wanda White. And in this book, she documents magical women. So based on her travels, she experiences these women who have different powers of sorts and live in these different communities and that raise children. And so our main character reads this book because she, again, is turning into a dog. And so she wants to read about other women who may have potentially experienced this. And in the movie, this book is given to her by a librarian. And it is a librarian we see multiple times throughout the film because we find out she is also a mother as well, and a mother that can relate to what our main character is going through. And then there's also a part in both book and movie when the mom is eating like a dog with her son. And the librarian is the one who walks up being like, oh, like, you're such a fun mom. Like, I remember when I used to do this with my son. And this did happen in the book, but in the book, it was just a random woman who walked up to her. But I can understand why the movie included this librarian character because I feel like she almost seems to symbolize Wanda White, the woman who wrote the field guide. However, by the end of the book, we find out that Wanda White isn't an actual person and that it's more abstract, and like Wanda White is who you become when you embrace your animal side. And so I guess by the end of the book, our main character she has reached Wanda White, I suppose. But yeah, that part in the book was pretty vague, I guess, and maybe too abstract. And so again, I can understand why the movie included this librarian figure who sort of represented that. And yeah, in the book, I really loved these segments from The Field Guide to Magical Women. To wrap up now, so there was a lot I liked about this movie. Amy Adams, of course, was incredible. But then there were moments that made me like borderline teary, as well as other moments that I thought were really funny. And one line that still gets me when I think about it is when her husband is bothering her when she's in the shower because they're out of milk. And she's just like, feel free to just go to the store and pick up some milk yourself. And then she's like, and while you're there, give me some tampons because I'm about to bleed and this one will be a doozy. Which was a fantastic scene. That was not in the book, but I loved it. But then also the boy who plays their son was just so cute. And then also I loved the opening scene when she sees this woman who now has her former job. And the woman is like, oh, like, aren't you just so happy that you get to stay home all day with, your little guy? Isn't this the best? And then the mom goes off explaining how complicated that question is for her to answer and just revealing the truth of how she actually feels. I will say there was a lot of voiceover in this movie though, and that sometimes it worked, but then other times it felt like it was too obvious. For example, when she first goes to Book Babies, we get voiceover about how she doesn't like being around other moms and all of this stuff. And I thought that was unnecessary. I feel like her emotions, what she's thinking and feeling is pretty obvious based on what we're seeing. So the voiceover just felt like too much at times. And when it comes to book versus movie, I am going to say that the book wins. And again, kind of like I said at the top, I think this story just works better as a book because so much is just this internal monologue and her thoughts, and it's so character driven and this internal transformation she's going through. And then there were so many things that were just like so surreal and abstract and weird. And so in some ways, this must have been a hard book to adapt to the screen. And yet, despite my complaints, I do think that they did a great job adapting this. I just think the book I was more engaged in the book for one, because this movie, there were a couple times where maybe it felt like it was dragging ever so slightly. Whereas again, in the book, yeah, I feel like the story just works better in book format in a lot of ways. But again, I did really like this movie and you should definitely check it out. And by the way, the author, Rachel Yoder, it seems like she was closely connected with the filming of this movie. And she even has a cameo. So we actually see it in the trailer, because it is when Amy Adams is eating like a dog with her son. Rachel Yoder plays a mother who looks at her in a judgmental way, which I thought was hilarious. And so that was fun just seeing her in the movie. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this. Share your thoughts on the book and movie down below in the comments. And also just a reminder to click that Ana Luisa link down below and check out their jewelry. They really do have amazing pieces that would make great Christmas gifts. And I am going to, on the end screen, I'm going to link to Delicate Condition and The Lost Daughter, because both of these also have themes that are very similar to this book and movie. So if you liked this book and movie, you should check out Delicate Condition and The Lost Daughter. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.